Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the World at War Comics podcast. Today, we have a fantastic guest for you today. But before we get into that, please remember to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notify bell. That way, you know whenever we are doing amazing interviews. Also, remember, this podcast is brought to you by Cien Chilies, the best hot sauce you could buy. Go to CIENCHILES.com. Use comics at checkout, and you'll save 15% off your entire order. It is also brought to you by Comic Crusaders. Go to comiccrusaders.com to get the best reviews of comics, comic movies, and even music. So check them out, comiccrusaders.com. All right, without further ado, our guest today is Phillip Kennedy Johnson. That's right, Phillip Kennedy Johnson, writer extraordinaire. He is the current writer on The Incredible Hulk. He is also the writer on John Stewart, War Journal, and he's doing a whole bunch of other things. He's one of the busiest gentlemen in comics, and you're going to love this interview. So without further ado, here is Phillip and I. Enjoy. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics podcast. Today, our special guest is Mr. Phillip Kennedy Johnson, writer extraordinaire. Hey, man, I can't tell you how excited I am to really get into all the things that you're involved in. We were just talking a second ago. I don't know how you do it, man, because you got all these different titles with completely different styles of even writing, the balance of all of that. Plus, you just said that you do some other stuff during the day. I don't know how you do it, man. You must be a writing master or something. I don't know what's going on.
Not so much. I'm doing my best. I'm not as fast as I would like to be, sadly. So I just kind of struggle all the time, just trying to get everything done and not let anyone down. You know, there's just a lot of artists that need like pages put in front of them to keep everybody working. So that pressure is actually what makes it all like, there's just no choice, you know, like the artists everyone's got to work, you know? So I just try to stay ahead of everybody.
Yeah. Do you enjoy that pressure that you always have to have something to do? I mean, like some people need that to kind of get things going. Other people just enjoy the pressure of always being, having time, tables that they have to meet.
No, there is no. Do I enjoy it? That's a resounding no.
That's a resounding no. Gotcha.
I do not enjoy the pressure, but I do enjoy the collaborative spirit of what comics can be, like the collaborative nature of the medium.
Yeah.
I kind of feed on it the way that I do. Like my day job, I'm a musician with the Army as well. That's my other gig when I'm not doing this.
Awesome.
And I love playing jazz, especially like in a combo, like small group jazz, when it's all very improvisatory in nature.
Nice. What instrument do you play?
Trumpet.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
And anytime one member of the combo is switched out, like if you play two gigs with all the same people, except the bassist is different or the drummer is different or pianist or whoever, everything around it changes. It doesn't just change that one instrument; it changes everyone who reacts to that person. You know,
that's a good point. Yeah.
And it's the same way with change out the letter or the inker or anyone else on the book. Like everything else, if everyone's really responsive to each other, you should notice a real difference in the book.
Yeah.
So I love the medium. I love the collaborative nature of it. I love how everything changes depending on the team.
Yeah.
Every book, you mentioned how different the books feel. And a lot of that is due to my collaborators.
Yeah.
Because I try to write every book specifically for that artist. The line artist probably is most crucial as far as the tone of the book, but the colorist and the letter are also have just such a huge impact. So I try to keep all that in mind when I'm writing.
Yeah, I mean, you really have different art forms coming together to put this together, right? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Now, can we go back? I would love to know how you got into comics. Like, did you grow up with comics your whole life, like from an early age?
I did, yeah. When I was real little, my dad brought me these boxes of ripped up comics from like garage sales and flea markets and stuff.
Yeah.
And but to him they were just junk. Like it was just stuff to help me learn how to read.
Yeah.
Because he said he himself had learned how to read off of comic books when he was real little.
Nice.
But I think it was disappointing how into the medium I became. Like I was just really captivated by it. I just really fell in love with it. And I kind of made my own comics. I would copy a lot of the drawings that I found in there. Yeah. If I found a really awesome drawing of somebody, I would not like, I guess occasionally I would trace. Usually I would just kind of do my own version of that thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I started making my own little cartoon strips like you'd find in the newspaper.
Yeah.
I'd make up my own my own jokes and make a Garfield strip or something. I just loved something about sequential storytelling just really spoke to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was how I learned to read, and gave me a big leg up on the other kids as far from a very, very young age on reading. And it's also that love of reading.
Yeah.
Not just driven by comics, but also by comics.
Sure.
And then like fast forward, I had chosen music as a profession, and joined the army as a musician. But my younger brother was also a musician and an artist,
Oh,
and
wow.
he went the other way. He ended up pursuing art as a career, or wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going
Was
to
it
community
in
college.
comics though?
He wanted to be a comic artist, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he used to know how to get started. Like we both kind of grew up in Kentucky and in the middle of nowhere, and there was like no internet to speak of, and no comic store anywhere nearby, and it was just very desolate as far as exposure to comics. We just had the old stuff that we had always had, and sometimes we were able to get something new because back then comics were also in like, Target or
Walmart or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a little more. It not a ton of titles, but there would be something available in like a grocery store or whatever. So he wanted to get into comics as a profession and had no idea how to get started. And we were kind of just talking one night. By this time, I was already in the DC area as a musician, and he was still back at home. And he was just kind of shaking his fist at the stars, like, "What am I going to do? I want to do comics. Like, I don't know how the hell to do this."
Yeah.
And I just really felt for him, and I was like, "Just, dude, come in, move in with me, and we'll figure it out."
Yeah.
So he moved out to Maryland, and we just started kind of educating ourselves on how comics were made. And like I started finding some of the trade paperbacks that were coming out then, and of course ever since then, have script excerpts in the back, or sometimes there'd be script and you'd see thumbnails, pencils, and the whole process. That's always really valuable. Those are always really valuable to see. There were some really great books on how, it was kind of like how-to kind of books.
Yeah.
Shitty ones and great ones and everything in between. Just kind of just consumed a lot of that stuff, and just to see how it was done. We found a great store, which has since become this behemoth of comic retailers, Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland. Back then they were super small. They just opened.
Yeah.
So found that store, started going to conventions everywhere, trolling Artist Alley, and just kind of figured it out, So I started writing stuff for him just strictly to give him a portfolio of sequential pages. Because up till then he was just doing pinups. He would just have drawings that would look good, but it's like one drawing of Wolverine looking cool, or Superman flying in an easy to do pose.
Yeah.
Or somebody's kind of standing there like flexed, like the Liefeld standing there thing.
Yeah. With the big chest, that one.
Yeah, right. So he would just do various things, but he wasn't doing pages of sequential images.
Yeah.
So I would write him scripts just to illustrate, and just really got the bug, man. I just love, like I said, the collaborative nature of it. I started looking for other artists to work with.
Yeah.
Did a couple of pitch packets, and one of those got picked up.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, you started off kind of drawing, you said. When did that writing ability kind of trigger in you? Was that also at a younger age where you started writing stories, or did that come later?
I was writing from the beginning.
Yeah.
But I guess I identified more as an artist when I was a kid. I mean, I was good for a kid. I didn't put in the kind of work. I mean, just the fire that just consumes artists never really took hold of me the same way. I was content to be pretty good and to make stuff that, I would draw something and it would look pretty good. And I was content with that. I didn't really push myself to ever really get skilled. I was content to just kind of copy the stuff that I liked out of books and do my own versions. And, I had some talent, but nothing special. Writing is something like in school later on, I found that I did have a talent for writing that was a little more clear.
Yeah.
But again, I never really considered it as a career. I'd already found music and I was very taken with that. And that kind of became my career path. I did always really enjoy writing. But never really thought about it as a job until I started doing comics. And even then I was just kind of doing it because I wanted a creative outlet. I wasn't thinking like, they can pay me for this. I wasn't thinking about it as a career.
Right. Yeah.
I just loved it, man. It was just kind of the same thing that drew me to music then started. I kind of got the same sort of fire
for
writing and not just writing prose, but like being a part of a dynamic creative team,
Yeah. Yeah.
just really consuming in a way that writing prose did not inspire the same excitement in me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. Now, growing up, were there certain titles that were your favorite in comics? And have you been able to write some of those titles as an adult?
Yeah.
What is that like? I mean, that's got to be a pretty incredible feeling.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I'm having an unbelievable time on Hulk right now.
Yeah.
And Green Lantern too. Like I've really discovered this love of John Stewart that
Yeah.
I'm never going to let go of. At the time, though, when I was a kid, my love of comics came from a pretty meager stack of books compared to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like people that I know now who've been collecting since they were little kids and have these just long boxes out the ass of all this amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I had the equivalent of like I had 4 stacks of books, like just like literally stacked up with no bags or boards or anything. I didn't know that was a thing. Probably about that high,
Yeah.
like maybe a couple feet of comics. 4 though, maybe not even that tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even that tall. It was like more like foot and a half. 4 stacks like that, and that was all I had until much later in life.
Yeah.
So not really that many, and it all kind of made it amounted to um like a stack of cartoony stuff, like things that would later become DuckTales,
Yeah.
like Star, like Golden Key,
Mm-hmm.
Gladstone. What was another one of those?
Like Heathcliff or something like that. Calvin and
I had
Hobbes.
a couple of Heathcliff. Mostly it was like Huey, Dewey, and Louie,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
like Scrooge McDuck, Beagle Boys, that kind of stuff. The things that
Yeah.
let's see, Baby Huey, Richie Rich.
Richie Rich. Yeah.
So yeah, those kind of things. But then there was also had a lot, probably more DC than anything. I had a good bit of
Mhm.
DC, and that was primarily Batman and Superman stuff.
Yeah.
It was all like we had a lot of Batman, a lot of Brave and the Bold, World's Finest,
Yeah.
Batman family books, Superman family books. Um, I remember those in like the 80-page, 100-page giants. So I had like a kind of like an anthology. I had some of those.
Yeah.
Marvel ended up being a lot of Spider-Man team ups for the most
Yeah.
part. We had like the Marvel team up series,
Mm-hmm.
a fair bit of Spider-Man on his own, and then just a couple random things, like a couple of Cat books, a couple Daredevil, a couple
Yeah.
whatever. But most of it was Spidey.
Yeah.
And through those team ups, I kind of found I discovered a lot of the Marvel roster through those team ups
Yeah.
because he was constantly it was going through a revolving door of A, B, and C list characters that he would
Right.
team up with or fight. That's where I kind of met everybody in the Marvel world. But yeah, I mean, probably the biggest impression on me as a little kid though was Batman and Superman. Like
Yeah.
both those guys, both represented really important power fantasies for me.
Yeah.
And I just had, plus those are the books I had the most of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've since then I've gotten to write Batman here and there, and
Yeah.
that's been really awesome. And of course, having written action for like 3 years now,
Yeah.
has
You have
been
a lot of action on your belt.
an
Yeah.
unbelievable honor to get to do
Yeah.
that. Something about writing Superman just
Yeah.
feels important, and like there's a responsibility to it that I
Mm-hmm.
will never take for granted. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you're making a statement on what humanity should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I
There's
mean,
this
that's
self.
top of the food chain when it comes to DC, right? And it's part of the Trinity. You've been able to do
Yeah,
2 of the 3. You just need to get Tom King out of the way once he's done with
yeah,
his
right.
run to be able to do Wonder
Well,
Woman and live off.
I did get one Wonder Woman short, which is
Oh,
really
did
fun.
you?
I did, yeah. So I've written them all
That's awesome.
briefly. Yeah, it was fun, man. That was
Yeah.
what was that? That was a tie-in for Lazarus Planet.
Oh,
I got
was it?
to write a story for Wonder Woman on Themyscira when
That's cool.
the dead, like all the dead soldiers who've died on the shores of Themyscira, like
Yeah.
rise from the dead. And there's this really awesome fight.
That's awesome, man.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I mean, getting to write Superman has been just the honor of a lifetime. I mean,
Yeah.
there's this philosophical weight to it that I don't take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. When you growing up and you were creating your own characters and designing like stories for those characters, did you create anything that one day you would like to do, maybe like a self-published or work for someone else to be able to bring some of those to life? Or was it not that in depth as far as the production of whatever you were creating at that time?
I'm sorry, man. I lost you for just a second. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. So I've met a lot of creators, and when they were little, they would create like their own characters and their
Oh,
own
I see.
superheroes. Yeah. And then later in life, as they got into comic books, they've had the opportunity to maybe self-publish a few issues of that character with their own stories. Have you ever like considered taking some of those characters and maybe self-publishing one day, or no?
I've I've done some creator owned, and I'm actually doing a creator owned right now. I don't have anything that I made up as a kid that I would want to revisit.
Yeah. Okay.
Because back then, um, comics were superheroes. That's what comics. That was the whole point of comics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I did have some really old shit that was like Western stuff or a pirate.
Yeah.
I had some classics illustrated.
Oh wow.
I had some Western things. Let's see, what were some of those? A couple Lone Ranger. I had a couple of I want to say I had like a Gene Autry comic or something.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I could see that.
Like a couple of the other, like just a couple
Singing
of
cowboy, something like that.
Yeah, right. A couple of random characters I don't remember anymore.
Yeah.
But for the most part, comics were about superheroes.
Yeah.
So the stuff that I would have invented back then would have been along those lines. And nothing. I don't even remember any of them now.
Yeah.
Mostly I was just drawing the things I like, which were primarily Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Cap, the cartoony stuff. I did like Garfield for some reason. I really liked there's something about the vibe of the Garfield strips.
Yeah.
And Calvin and Hobbes were really fun. And sometimes I'd either copy one or just do my own
own version of that.
Yeah, my most prominent teacher has always been mimicry, just mimicking the stuff that I admired.
Yeah, good way to learn.
And kind of finding my own voice through that. Just kind of unapologetically copying stuff at first, and then kind of letting it go where it wants to go.
Yeah. Now, when you're working for DC, you do some stuff for Marvel as well. When you were given a title, obviously because you've enjoyed comics so long, for the most part, you probably have an idea of who that character is. But is there a process of studying about those characters before you jump in? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. Especially when it's a character I don't know that well. So my first creator owned was a book called Last Sons of America at Boom Studios. And that got noticed at DC by the Justice League editor at the time. Wow. It was Brian Cunningham. And he reached out. He's like, hey, would you want to do something for us? I was like, hell yeah. So
that must have been a fun call to get.
Yeah, it was awesome. And so we met. I was actually going to be in LA. So he was like, let's get lunch. So we got lunch, and he was like, okay, here are the books that I edit right now.
Yeah.
And I don't remember all of them that he said. So he was the Justice League guy, with the exception of the Metropolis and Gotham stuff. So basically he was like, okay, I do Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman. There's some other stuff that was not Justice League. So like Hellblazer, Green Lantern Corps, maybe, or something else. He was like, what would you be drawn to? And I was like, Hellblazer all day. Like I've read, I know all there is to know about Hellblazer.
Yeah.
And he said, well, actually what I need is an Aquaman one shot. And I was like, that's what I meant. I love Aquaman. Let's do it. I was like, I'm not going to say no, but I didn't know shit about Aquaman.
That's hilarious.
I knew him from the Super Friends, and that was straight up it.
Yeah.
So I had to do this big deep dive on Aquaman. And honestly, I had the same exact story back when I was at Boom. Boom asked me if I wanted to do an Adventure Time short, and I'd never seen Adventure Time.
Yeah.
But I told him I loved it. And then I went and I just got on Hulu and just spent 6 hours just mainlining Adventure Time. That was a weird couple of days. But I legit did I learned to love that show. I mean, there's real lore to that show. It looks super weird. You just turn the show on and it's like raining knives for no reason, and there's like a little game console talking to you, and everything is just like, what the fuck is happening?
What the hell's going on?
Yeah, it was super weird. But the more I watched, the more I started to find real lore underneath the surrealism of it.
Yeah.
So you just kind of immerse yourself in it, and you kind of find where the strong through lines are. You find the things that make it interesting to you. You find what, the things that you're curious about or that you would want to blow out. And what I found in the Aquaman stuff is that I wanted to see a whole lot more of Atlantis. Atlantis never felt real to me in those books.
Yeah.
I don't want to see, like when you see Atlantis, I don't want to see super vague little towers, filled with white dudes in armor speaking
Yeah.
English.
Yeah.
Like even the armor looks vague. There's no architecture, there's no fashion, there's no rhyme or reason to the names. You can't tell where the names come from.
Yeah.
The weapons are everything's just kind of vague. Not
Mm-hmm.
always. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm not saying that every Aquaman story is weak at all. Some of them are
Yeah.
great, actually.
Right.
But I found that the thing that really lit a fire into my ass for Aquaman was I wanted to see more of the world building of Atlantis,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to see more of the culture of the Atlanteans. And I
Mm-hmm.
love the parallels between Aquaman and the King Arthur myths. I mean, he is, just the idea. His name is Arthur, and he is
Yeah.
their king. But he's also in the original legends, he was this pauper that was raised up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wanted to see stuff like that. I wanted a chance to world build. So that was kind of my way in, just
Yeah.
to try to flesh out more of Atlantean culture.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And then when did Marvel give a call to you? How'd you get
Um,
involved with Marvel when you started with DC? And how does that work?
so Brian Cunningham read Last Sons of America,
Mm-hmm.
and my next creator own at Boom, that first creator own to Boom went really well. It was really
Yeah.
fun. I had a great relationship with the editor. And so he reached out. I was like, let's do something else. What do you want to do next? And I talked about Warlords of Appalachia, which was another story I wanted to do. It's a world set in a world in which, let's see, it's set after the second American Civil War, and Kentucky's become an occupied nation within U.S. borders.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of see Kentucky as the Afghanistan of the American South, and this guy accidentally sparks a revolution, becomes the first feudal warlord of the Appalachian Mountains.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. And so I did that book,
Yeah.
and that was noticed by Ricky Purdon, at the time he was kind of the guy who discovered talent, basically.
Okay.
And he's kind of from that area. He knows Appalachia a little bit. So he read it and really liked it, and just kind of started throwing it at different editors, putting it on their desks, and got noticed. So then I got a call from Nick Lowe to do. They also found out that I was active duty Army,
Mm-hmm.
and they were doing these 80th anniversary issues, kind of celebrating old books
Mm-hmm.
that weren't around anymore,
Yeah.
like House of Secrets or whatever. And one of them was War is Hell.
Oh, wow.
And they had Howard Chaykin do a 10-pager in there, and they had me do a 10-pager.
Wow.
And they were totally different. Howard had this story that he wanted. It's like basically about the death of Glenn Miller. It was all about kind of big band music, and
Yeah.
Chaykin's got this great love of and knowledge of music and musical theater and everything. So he wanted to tell a story about Miller, and my story was very different. Mine was it talked about PTSD, but it describes PTSD as like a mythical African spirit that it's the origin of where war comes from.
Oh, wow.
And it's like it becomes over the generations and the centuries and the millennia, it becomes like this infection that passes through spilled blood. It's like the supernatural disease.
Wow, that sounds awesome, man.
This thing, the first hunter of men, So that's what it becomes. PTSD. That's what we all. So when you experience something super violent, fucked up,
Mm-hmm.
somebody else's blood gets on you, and that's how
Yeah.
it comes to you. So now you're fucked up too, and you do something to
Yeah.
someone else, and that's how it survives.
Amazing. What a
And now
crazy story, man. That's awesome.
That story is called War Devil.
War Devil.
War Devil is about to appear as an actual creature in Incredible Hulk now.
No way. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's
Dude, it's
awesome.
gonna be really cool. I'm excited. Nick's drawing the shit out of it. So
That's
I can't
so
wait to show
cool,
you.
man. Now, as you're writing like the Incredible Hulk or even Green Lantern, obviously there's editors and whatnot, but man, it sounds like, especially with what you're doing with the Incredible Hulk, man, it seems like you have free reign to kind of just do your thing, right?
Pretty much. They've been
it's awesome.
There are editors that still they're still minding the shop, but
sure.
they've given me a lot of creative freedom.
I mean, you've done enough to where you've probably earned that, right? But still, man, because this is so different from some of the Hulks that we've had lately, and it's very
Yeah.
refreshing, to be quite honest. I
Well,
like
thank
it.
you, man. I
Yeah, I
appreciate
love
that
it.
a lot.
I love it.
I mean, Al Ewing kind of peed in the pool. It's so that book was so good, man.
Yeah,
Immortal Hulk was so good.
yeah,
Um, so what do you do after that?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
no,
like Donnie was absolutely right to do a heel turn.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
You have
to
to after something like that, right?
yeah, yeah, he did a completely different book as he should
Yep.
have. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very Donnie book. You know, it was like super bombastic, big crazy visuals.
Yeah, yeah,
Just like a fun kind of just a celebratory romp in what
yeah,
like Marvel superhero fight should be. You know, but it's very
yeah,
very bulky, very violent. Just kind of a fun romp. But you know, understandably, people miss Immortal because it was amazing.
yeah, yeah, man.
And for me too, like when they gave me the call to do that book, my instincts were to just do more Immortal.
Yeah,
That was the biggest challenge. I was like, how do I do this and not just copy the
yeah,
Al book? Because it was perfect. You know, I
agree.
love I have a taste for horror anyway. I just
Yeah,
love horror books, but Hulk as a horror story just makes all the sense. That's what it
yeah, for
was
sure,
originally supposed to be, you know.
for sure.
He goes back, Al very cleverly tied it into the original like concept of what Hulk was. He goes back to the thing where he comes out at night and everything.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I decided after a lot of thought, contemplation, and figuring out what I would do, my mind kind of went to Hellboy,
Oh
and
yeah,
I love Mignola stuff. I love Del Toro films. I love
yeah,
like I thought instead of Cronenberg Hulk, which is kind of what Al's book was, let's do Del Toro Hulk. Let's do Mignola Hulk, where it's instead of being a thing that takes place in dark locked laboratories, it's something that takes place in like the in the in haunted riverbeds and
yeah.
you know ghost towns in Appalachia and Potter's Fields and more of a supernatural folk horror kind of
For
take.
sure, for sure.
And
And you
so
definitely
that's
get
where I
that,
started.
especially out of issue 4, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're letting me do this thing at the end of the conclusion of all the arcs. I'm doing this thing in the back called the Remembrances of Eldest,
Yeah.
where I get to talk about the monsters that are in the issue. Um, and so we're kind of adding to the pantheon. We're adding to the bestiary, I should say, adding to the Marvel bestiary of like all the monstrous side of the Marvel EU. We get to add some more monsters to that roster, which is really
That's
exciting.
sweet, man. That's exciting. For sure. I mean, especially something that, 50 years from now could still be used and it has your
Exactly.
fingerprints on it, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, I would love to see War Devil get used again. I'd love to see. There's another creature I'm about to introduce that I think is going to have legs as well.
Nice. I love it.
I mean, I made up Sister Sadie and Brother Deep very specifically for issues 2 and 3.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah.
But that's not to say they can't come back. I mean, I'd love
Yeah.
to see them again too. But these ones that are coming up soon,
Yeah.
I think could very easily have legs beyond the series.
Yeah. That's awesome. Then we get into, if we can, a little bit of Mr. John Stewart. So I'm a big Green Lantern fan. I love Green Lantern, and it's been so dry the last couple of years. And we hear rumblings of things about to happen, and then nothing happened. And even I reached out to Myron and to Phil, and we talked once in a while, and we're just like, what's happening with Green Lantern? Now there's so much news about Green Lantern. We're just beside ourselves, right? So there's 2 titles. We hear of a Max series coming out, which will be Hal and John working together. Like, this is crazy, right? And then we don't even know what Justice League down the road, which there should have been in Green Lantern in the last run, and there wasn't. But man, there's like more than enough Green Lantern going around that we're all extremely excited. So then we get into John Stewart, and I actually picked up all 5 issues of issue 1 just because this one is the dog tag one, so it still has a cover on it. But man, they're absolutely incredible. So we get into John Stewart, and you did the 3-part series that was in the first 3 issues of Hal, right? Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see John, he's sitting out in the front with his mom. His mom knows he misses everything that was taking place with the Green Lantern. He does. And then in this issue, you start to see he's like looking back on some of the things that he's accomplished as a Green Lantern. And there's a yearning. And then at the end of it, we don't want to give anything away because people might not have read it, but something takes place and those powers come forth. I mean, I don't know if you're as excited as I am about John Stewart, but I love where this is going. And John Stewart plays such an important role amongst all the Green Lanterns. Is it relatable because of the military background? Is there anything that you can relate to John Stewart that you want to bring in from your past experience? Or are you just taking canon and running with it and going in the direction that you want to go with the character?
It's both, really.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to respect the canon, right?
Yeah.
And we've already established, like, the Jeff Thorne run.
Yeah.
Took some big swings and made some real changes to to John's status quo.
Yeah.
That, would have been disrespectful to just change or ignore.
Yeah, just ignore it, right? I mean, I'll be honest, as a Green Lantern fan, I felt like it went too far. And now he's got such an ability that's apart from the rest, but you still have to respect it because it's been done. And like, to your point, it would be disrespectful just to wipe that out. So I understand. Yeah, you got to kind of carry on from there.
Yeah, so there was a similar, well, it's not similar actually, but in Action Comics, there was a thing with the John Kent thing where he had been aged up. And when I jumped on the book, everyone was like high five and like, yes, now he can just undo all that stuff. And like, that's not really how you should do it. You can't just wave a magic wand and be like, now we're going to go back to 2 years ago, because then it is disrespectful to the previous art team, but it's also disrespectful to the character, to the readers who've been following along, just to kind of pretend like none of that happened.
Understood.
It's just, you can't just, I don't know, man. It just makes everything feel so like cheap and pointless if you can just kind of go poof and just make it all go away. So instead, I kind of, on that book, I kind of played the long game to get us back to a place where we've got Superman as a father to a young kid again.
Yeah.
But John had his own story to tell, and that was already underway.
Yeah.
So now, once again, we got Superman and Lois as parents,
but
it's not, there is a kid that is very much like John in his way, but it's different, it is a little bit different, but the vibe is what we wanted, So now with this, once again, I'm sure there are some, like, comics is about the illusion of change, right? Like, it's an issue comes out. An issue comes out and it feels like, oh my God, this is the issue where everything changes. And like, this guy's dead, or he's got a different color ring now, or whatever happens. And not to say that it's never the case, but it does eventually have to find its way back, because it's this long story that never ends.
Right.
The arc for that character has to be a very different kind of shape than you would see in like a movie. That's like 2 hours. Boom. Here's what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
You're never going to kill Sinestro forever. Joker's never going to get killed forever. Lex Luthor, they're all going to be around forever. It's all part of it.
Yeah.
That said, though, I do acknowledge that there are parts of the canon, parts of John Stewart's canon, that are currently missing, that I'm going to try to take kind of an Action Comics trajectory, like eventually get things familiar, but in organic ways that make sense and keep everything really exciting, and we're not erasing anything,
Yeah. That's a good point. And then, speaking of what you're going to do with John Stewart, how far out are you working, so that way you could break it down by issue and make sure that you do reach that point? Like, how far out do you have to work on a series like this, or any series for that matter?
I know what we're going to do for 12 issues.
Okay, so are you usually 12 ahead on everything you do then?
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
It varies a lot, actually.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I have 12 scripts written yet. I have I have like I have an arc very much in mind for the first. I have like an arc kind of vaguely shaped out, and then I've got another arc that is more vaguely shaped out. I know where it's going to end up. Basically, like, if I try to approach writing, at least comics writing, like an ice sculpture kind of. If they were to drop off a gigantic block of ice the size of a truck in your on your driveway, and you just start like, scalpeling it down to make it the shape you want, it would take forever, and you just never get there. So chainsaw first. Like I've got 2 arcs chainsawed up. And I'm usually about, I've got the chisel out about 2 issues ahead, and then I'm scalpeling like about 1 issue ahead.
Right. Nice. Nice, nice. That's pretty cool. Is there something? Well, I know I want to be careful because I know you can't speak about the future, but one of the popular Green Lantern comics was the Green Lantern Corpse. And as you know, right, a lot of them have had their rings removed. They're kind of on Earth right now, unless they were put somewhere else in the universe. Do you see something like that happening in the future where maybe you and Jeremy come together to put some of those type of stories together, or no?
I shouldn't talk about it. I'm sorry.
Okay, very good.
We do have plans.
Okay, that's all I need to know. That's good enough. Yeah,
I will say Jeremy and I are good friends. Like we actually it was him I was talking to on the phone right before this.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I jumped on like 1 minute late because I was on the call.
That's okay.
Jeremy and I were talking.
Yeah.
We talk a lot. He's a great dude.
He is a great dude.
We're gonna have a proper catch up, like a work catch up at New York Comic Con.
Nice.
So yeah, it would be a shame not to do some kind of crossover, some kind of collaboration together. So I'm sure you can look forward to something like that.
No, that satisfies that desire very much. So I appreciate that. I actually had Jeremy on about a week ago.
Oh, and, great!
He is a great guy, good family guy. I like his videos with his family and stuff. And I've seen you with your family too, right behind where all those books are at. So I know you've done videos like that, which has been pretty cool. Yeah. Well, this is so awesome, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time, Phillip. I mean, this has been so exciting for me as a big fan of everything you do. I'm super excited that you were able to come on. I cannot wait to see where we're going with Incredible Hulk. He's probably him and Spider-Man are my two favorites for Marvel.
Oh,
and
cool,
I'm really loving the direction that you're going. I love that Man Thing was brought back in.
It
was pretty cool, man. That was awesome. And then
I'm glad you like that. You know, it's funny, like in this particular story, Man Thing was just kind of like he was kind of like the way into the story. And I did not anticipate all the Man Thing love.
Really? Oh, yeah.
And honestly, the one regret I had from issue 5, the one that's about to come out, is like, man, I wish there was more. Like when the whole thing was done and turned in, I was like, I wish there was more Man Thing in it. Yeah. And because of that, I mean, I am determined to use him again.
Yeah. Like you almost have to now, right? Because everyone's just like, oh my God, I forgot about Man Thing.
Yeah, I know. Well, see, I love him too. Like I think Man Thing's awesome. And Swamp Thing, honestly, as well at DC. Like I know they're not the same thing, but there are things about both that I love.
Yeah.
And now that I've seen that, like my one regret of this series so far is I wish I'd had more Man Thing in these 2 issues. So because of that, I'm gonna pay it off. I'll bring him back.
Yeah. I think the fans want that for sure, man. It was so refreshing to see him. And then the whole storyline was pretty awesome. And it ends in a way where you're like, what the hell? So I can't wait to read issue 5 for sure.
Good, man. Yeah. I'll say this too. For the Hulk fans that are watching, get issue 6. Like issue 5 is the one about to come out. Yeah. It's with Travel Foreman as the conclusion of the Man Thing and the Swamp Witch story. Mm-hmm. And then issues 6 through 8 are the story with World War II era Ghost Rider. Like there's a new Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
And the War Devil.
Nice.
And issue 6 has the gnarliest Hulk transformation that has ever been in a comic book. Full stop.
Really?
Yeah. Nick is
I got
just
chills, man.
Nick is doing unbelievable work. It's
incredible. Absolutely incredible.
He's getting better. Like I routinely get pages from Nick that look like covers, interior pages, like constantly. It's just insane how good he is.
Yeah. So, well, you know, since you bring that up, I have another question, if that's okay. That dance that takes place between a writer and an artist, like, how would you explain that? Because the art has to tell a large portion of the story too, because of the limitations of the panels to be able to write it out, right? So how important is that, and how closely are you working with an artist, no matter what you're writing?
Lately, well, it's super important to interact as closely as you can with your artist. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it gets hard because everyone's doing, like, writers are typically doing more than one book at once and everything. Everybody's juggling everything. It's probably the biggest surprise I was faced with getting into the comics industry is how flying by the seat of the pants everything is. Like every book, every single book on the shelf is one migraine away from not existing. Like, it's just
Really?
everyone's just frantically getting to the next print date, or
Yeah.
everyone's just doing their best that they can under like a gun to the head deadline all the time,
Wow.
all the time.
Wow.
So everyone's doing their best. Sometimes there are stories that would be different if everyone had twice as much time. I know,
Yeah.
but everyone just got to get the book out, and so it's just this. Everyone is just putting every bit of energy they have into the book to make it as good as it can possibly be on a very limited schedule.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just I cannot speak more highly of the work ethic I see of everyone I've ever worked with in comics. It's just
Yeah.
nuts how hard they work.
Yeah.
Especially
Awesome.
for something that doesn't, compared to something like to our counterparts in film or something.
Yeah.
Um, it's not like we're making millions, but
Yeah.
man, they're working like they do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
That's
amazing.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Anyway, that aside, sorry, I got a little bit off track there.
That's okay. Yeah, that balance and that dance between the writer and the artist, how important is
Yeah.
that?
Ideally, you want to be talking to your artist a lot. I interact with Nick a lot. We text every couple of days. We
Yeah.
primarily interact via text.
Mm-hmm.
He'll send me something he's working on, or ask a question, or I'll ask him a question, or he'll just send me something he just finished that looks incredible. So yeah, we talk a lot. It's like he'll give me a little. I say, we'll talk about the next issue. He'll be like, "You're going to give me a two-page splash with Ghost Rider Hulk clashing, right?" I'm like, "I guess I am. Let's get
Yes,
this
you
done."
are now.
Yeah, I just tend to give him what he wants, because I'm writing everything. Like, every page is like a love letter to Nick. Like, I want to set him up. I'm
Yeah,
telling him
that's
a
awesome.
story so he can tell you a story.
Yeah,
It's important as a writer to have that humility to understand that the art is what the whole book hinges on. I
yeah,
mean, the art just makes or break every book.
yeah.
So I definitely give it everything I can to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that my writing is worthy of that artist.
Yeah,
But the artist is the magician.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I have, God, I have so much respect for Nick.
Yeah.
Every relationship though is different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm doing a creator owned right now, and on that book, I can't say who the collaborator is, but that artist loves to get just as much information on the page as possible,
Yeah.
and not that he wants a super like panel crammed page, but he
Right.
wants all the little detail things on the page are what matters to him. Like, he doesn't want to do a big open prairie landscape with no detail.
Right.
He wants something that how do you describe it? He described it as making the big things small, is what he said.
Mm,
He wants detail things that make things look real and lived in and personal.
oh wow.
And yeah, so he has very specific things that he likes in scripts, and so that's what I give him. And there are other artists that prefer things to be much more vague,
Mm-hmm.
and they like
Yeah.
to add those things themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
With Nick, um, man, I with Nick, I honestly, I haven't needed to adjust very much. He likes what I give him, but we have such a good rapport
Yeah. Yeah.
that sometimes he'll just ask me for stuff, and I'll
Yeah.
just give it to him. Sometimes he'll give me notes too. Notes do not
Yeah.
go one way. Just because my role as the writer comes first does not mean that the art team works for me. Like, we're all
Yeah.
collaborators.
Sure. Yeah.
So even though, like, when my script is written, my job is
Mm-hmm.
not done yet. Like, it goes to
Yeah.
them, they draw it. I see thumbnails, like very basic versions of those things.
Yeah.
And then we talk more about the collaboration. And very often I will rewrite my stuff based on those thumbnails. Like, actually, I kind of screwed you on this page. It's too full.
Yeah.
Or here's something I think I should have done differently. Or I'll use their thumbnails to inform what I should have done differently.
Yeah.
So I'll make adjustments and give them another one. And then they'll send me thumbnails again and be like, that's it. And then they'll do the detailed pencils.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk with the colorist, or whatever.
Yeah. That comment that you made about everyone's kind of flying off the seat of their pants to make deadlines, do you think that hinders the comic book industry from being able to have more books that are telling better stories? Or do you think that's just the nature of it and the stories wouldn't change that much because the story is the story?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Yeah, you said that, everyone's flying off the seat of their pants. Everyone would like a little bit more time to be able to tell a better story or maybe a more complete story. Do you think that's hindering the comic book industry right now? Because not everybody has that ability to tell a great story in a short amount of time. Everyone has different levels of experience, all that good stuff. So does that hurt the comic books?
Well, I didn't mean it to come across as like, well, this is why the books are not good. It's like,
no, and I don't mean that too. Maybe
yeah.
I phrased that wrong myself, but I mean, like if you're a newer writer, does that hurt that new writer and cause that new writer not to be able to bring forth the best story they could because they haven't had that time maybe a more seasoned writer has? Therefore, it does hinder the book?
No, I think, well, there are a lot of creator-owned books, and actually, you know what? Even some of the big two, like corporate type stuff, some of those we got a head start on a lot of those books way in advance.
Okay, yeah.
There are crunches that happen.
Yeah.
But there are other books that we start earlier on. If we have a rock star artist, well, for example, Nick Klein, like Nick is turning in pages that look, I mean, there's never been a time when anyone could do the level of detail that Nick is doing and do that page a day, kind of what comic industry standard.
Yeah.
Like there was a time in which, it was kind of the goal that everyone needed to meet was, about a page a day. You could, like, a good penciler could pencil a page a day. That's not taking into account the level of detail that some of these people are doing.
Yeah.
Like some of these pages that they're turning in is just unbelievably good. And you can't expect to see quality like that at a page a day.
Yeah.
So usually when possible, we'll give those artists much more runway so that those books can be as amazing as they turn out.
Yeah.
So when you see stories like, All-Star Superman with Frank Quietly's art, that's not page a day work.
Yeah.
That stuff gets done much more slowly and meticulously.
Right.
So yeah, there's, when I'm talking about people working, like, when I said that, what I was talking about was people's work ethic.
Yeah. No, I understand it. And maybe I took it the wrong way. I apologize. I don't want to put you in a weird spot.
No.
You got to shit on the whole industry. That's not what I meant. But
I think I am perpetually impressed with the industry. I just can't believe how hard. I was just trying to say how hard everyone works. It's unbelievable how hard everyone works. Very often at great personal expense.
Yeah,
there are people who just work around the clock at the cost of their own health.
Yeah, we see it all the time. We hear stories, you read stories.
They just love the industry and they love the medium. They love the work.
Yeah, I mean, fans like us, right? Their sacrifice is why we still have what we have, for sure.
Yeah,
so there has to be great respect on those folks that have given that, and it's sad that they have given that. And I wish you could do the same quality work and still get everything done and not have to give so much, because no industry, whether it's comics or the food industry like I'm part of, which is also very, fly at the seat of your pants.
Time sensitive, right?
Yeah, very time sensitive. And of course they want all the data to make the decision. And, I need it by this afternoon. You're like, what the hell? We're all in different time zones. So yeah, it happens in every industry. So, yeah.
No, there's any kind of, like serial publishing, something where like there's a newspaper coming out every day or a magazine every month or some of those things. Like there's this crazy just rush that never ends.
Yeah.
So I just have the highest respect for everyone I work with in comics. It's pretty amazing what they can get done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Phillip, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you jumping on. I want to be respectful of your time. Super big fan. Hope we could do this again one day. Especially as we get into some of the other arcs. I would love to dig more into some of those arcs once we're past issue 1. I certainly want people to pick it up. So I didn't want to go into too much detail because, it's only been a week and I think people are still reading the comics. I know I have stacks from my Wednesday that it takes me a couple of weeks to get through them all because of everything else that I'm doing in life with work.
Well, thanks for picking them up, man. I appreciate your support.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm super excited as a Green Lantern fan just to have a comic of Green Lantern. So
I appreciate that. Thanks to your viewers too. I really appreciate you guys picking up the books. We
Absolutely.
really are working really hard for you. I could not be more proud of all the creative teams I'm working with. Like the Action Comics issue that just came out, Action 1057, might be my favorite issue that we've done so far. I'm so proud of it. We get to see Clark Kent as a reporter.
Yeah.
Like up till now, I've been doing all this gigantic, bombastic, epic stuff, mostly in space, which I loved. I love seeing like the super part of Superman. But it
Yeah.
was also, and we still get that in this issue. We get this really awesome fight at the end. But we also see him taking the time to just have lunch with a guy that he put away years ago, like an
Yeah.
ex-con that now they're friends. They just like hang out.
That's cool,
And
man.
like there's really quiet moments. It's kind of like my answer to the Grant Morrison jumper scene from All Star.
Yeah.
You see like kind of these Christopher Reeve-esque like reporter moments that are really fun. And Rafa Sandoval and Matt Herms, man, are just can't believe how good those guys are. And same thing with Nick and Matt Wilson on Hulk, and Montos is crushing on Green Lantern. Montos is going to be a star, man. He's doing such
Yeah.
great work on Green Lantern. And I see so much of he just looks like the Green Lantern I see in my mind. You asked about
Yeah.
my military background, and I do, I know a lot of military people, and I know what it's like when people go from that crazy environment where everything's ramped up to 11 all the time,
Yeah.
and then they come back and they have to remember how to drive the speed limit again.
Yeah.
Like
Man.
where, they're used to, when they drive, they're used to 360 degrees of danger, and like they're
Yeah.
just like their alertness is just like completely off the charts.
Yeah.
And they come back and they try to chase that, they try to find that same adrenaline.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's hard to adapt, So I'm seeing I get to show, well, Montos gets to show. I get to help Montos show John Stewart in that scenario where he's gone on these crazy intergalactic adventures
Yeah.
where the stakes are just stupid high, and then he comes home and he's like sitting in a red light, just like going crazy, like
Yeah.
just crawling out of his skin for the light to change, or
Yeah.
like moving dirt with a shovel.
Yeah.
When he's used to just moving planets around. And we get to see that. We get to see, we get to see John not just as the ex-Marine that we saw him as in the cartoon show, but we get to see him as a son and a brother, and a former service member, and a guy like a guy with this kind of don't fuck with me kind of chip on his shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Like the tactician, the engineer, the architect. He's such a multifaceted character. He's the guy that to me always should have been Green Lantern. Like we've seen so many Green Lanterns who are the dark horse pick.
Yeah.
Like the ring chooses them, sometimes seemingly by accident, sometimes because he's there, or because it sees something in them that we don't see yet, and then they have to kind of show us why the ring chose them.
Yeah.
John Stewart to me was always the obvious choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he checks off everything right away, right? More so than any other Green Lantern. So
he's just the consummate Green Lantern, and Montos is showing that in every panel.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned that about service members and what they go through while they're serving, and then coming back in the world that they have to live in. And then you read this, and obviously I saw that, but from a different perspective. But that perspective is the right perspective to see. And I hope people hear what you just said, because when they read issue 1, and I'll read it again, I think you're gonna feel differently about John Stewart after reading that. So I appreciate that. That gives me chills. Incredible, man.
Thanks,
yeah, that's awesome, Phillip, man. Yep, Green Lantern's different. John Stewart's different now. Issue 1 for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very proud of that character. So he's going to go through some stuff too. I really hope everyone stays on board. We're showing some crazy stuff. We have to show a lot about John's character, but also we get to show some real lore, some like hidden lore from the Green Lantern history that nobody knows about yet, that I get to show now. As we've established, I just love world building.
Yeah.
And the Green Lantern Corps stuff, that's always been the Wild West for me. Now I get to kind of flesh out some of that.
For sure, for sure. I mean, he's always been my favorite because there is a Superman-esque features about John Stewart. His humbleness, yet if you mess with him, right, he's very quick to take care of it in a very simple way because of his background. He is a don't fuck with me kind of guy for sure. But you don't see that aspect of that until he's pushed. There's like a respectfulness about him until he's pushed. But once he's pushed, that side does come out, as it should in that situation, right? And so I love that stoicness about John Stewart. And even as a kid watching the cartoon, he always was the most mature. in the cartoon to be able to make decisions. And everyone else there, right? They all have all kinds of issues, but they don't have that maturity that John Stewart always brought to the table as a member of the Justice League. So, man, I'm so excited for you to flesh this out, especially with your military background. I think that's really important as a writer of this character. And
thank you, man.
Yeah. And thank you for your service, by the way, Phillip.
That's awesome. Of course, man. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my friend. I do hope we could do this again. I really enjoyed it. Really appreciate you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's great to meet you, Tommy.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate you. And have a great rest of your week. I'm sure you got a lot to do.
I do. Thanks, man.
All right. Talk soon. Thanks again.
See ya.
All right, bye.